Welcome back, everyone. So we now have a short video from Trevor Harris. He's joining us here now. Trevor will ask you a few questions after this video. And if you have questions, put them into the side of the screen in front of you, and we'll take questions from the floor as well. Trevor is a biodynamic farmer from County Kildare, cereals and horticulture, and he recently was awarded Grower of the Year at Washford Distillery as well, with two other biodynamic growers. So we'll see what's on the VT, Trevor.
Hello everybody, we're up the road here in Kilcock now, and we're on the farm of Trevor Harris. Trevor is an organic farmer, but Trevor is also a biodynamic farmer, so I think this is a first for BioFarm to have a biodynamic farmer. So I don't know enough about biodynamics, Trevor, so I think I'm going to let you to explain what your farm is and what biodynamic is, and what's the good things about biodynamic and why you're biodynamic.
Okay, so we're farming here just outside Kilcock, as you say, and we've a mixed farm. We've got cattle and sheep. We sell beef and lamb. We have cereals, so we sell oats. We sell barley, and we grow a polycrop, which is a mixture of various different cereals, and it's a fertility builder, and we sell that as well for animal feed. And then we also have a horticulture enterprise where we're growing solid leaf for restaurants in Dublin. And we've been organic farming here for a long time, for over 20 years, and more recently, over the last last 7 years, we've been farming biodynamically. And the reason we moved from organic to biodynamic was because we did some trials with the biodynamic preps. We were starting to run into some issues with the land. It was sort of starting to get tired and a little bit worn out, and it needed some work on the soil. So we tried the biodynamic preps, and we saw some positive results. So then we went for the whole farm with the biodynamics preps, and we got Demeter certification. And around the same time that we were trialing the preps, we had interest from Waterford Distillery for biodynamic barley. So that's why we went for the Demeter certification and went full throttle, as it were. And for us, what biodynamics is, it's a sustainable form of agriculture. It's a whole system approach to the farm, and we look at the farm as a whole living organism, and we try to try to have diversity within that living organism, and we try to have balance as well. So we're trying to work with nature, and we're using the biodynamic principles and the biodynamic preps to help us work with nature.
Okay, and there's quite a bit in this, and we won't have an awful lot of time, so I'm going to ask you a couple of general I suppose, introductions on. You spoke about biodynamic preps. So are they like almost like a biological agent that you spread on the farm?
So I suppose there's two key biodynamic preps that we're using, and one is called horn manure, or else it's called 500, and the other one's called horn silica, or else it's called 501. So we'll start with the horn manure, and what we're using that for is for soil health and for regeneration of the soil. So we'll spray that on the fields in the afternoons, and we spray it in order to encourage the soil the soil biology to build, to help tie up the nutrition that's within the soil in a safe manner, and also to help build humus. And then when we sow crops, we'll get the 500 out after we've sown the crop. And there's a number of things we're trying to do there. We're using tillage practices to prepare the soil for the sowing of the crops. So part of what the 500 is going to do is it's going to help rehabilitate any damage that we've done with our tillage practices. And the other thing that it does is it boosts germination of the seed, and it boosts the vigor of the plant. So then when we have our plants established and our seed beds sort of settled back down, the plants are still small, they're just starting to photosynthesize. We'll come through with our 501 spray, our horn silica, and what we're trying to do there is boost photosynthesis and get the plants to interact with the sun better and to make the most of what sunlight is available. And this obviously is very important in Ireland, given that we're on a grey day here, and we have a lot of grey days in Ireland. There's not so much sunshine. This summer has been great, but
Okay, so there's certain days you can't do things on, so.
So that's a different thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I twigged that I shouldn't have said it's a great day. Yeah.
So it's a different grade.
Yeah. So will I do the 501 again? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So when we have the soil settled back down and the plants germinated, we want to get them to photosynthesize well. So to do this, we'll use 501 and our horn silica. And the horn silica is going to make the plant photosynthesize better. It's going to make it interact with the sun an awful lot better and more efficiently. And in Ireland, this is very important because we don't get as much sunlight as other countries.
Okay, I see. And so these sprays, are the stimulants, or how would we describe them? Is it an energy loading, or is it that stimulates the soil?
So I suppose you're dealing with patterns, information patterns, and energies and things like that, and that's not something that people are normally comfortable discussing. But we're talking about stuff that's sort of in the quantum physics realm, and I suppose it's no different to any of the chemistry that farmers are using.
Yes, yeah.
They're not really aware of how it works or why it works, but they'll still use it.
And you've seen the positive effects of it.
I've seen the positive effects. Yeah. When you've applied horn silica to a field and you see the plants get this this vibrant sort of look to them, and you can see the color change, and you can see that they're actually.
I've heard this before, and I've never seen it, but almost within 24 hours.
Yeah. Like I do some contract spraying for some of the local farmers as well, and I one particular farmer, and it seems fanciful, but when you hear it, but it also makes sense. He rang me and he said to me, I'm seeing an effect here. Should I be seeing an effect? And he said that his field had changed colour from the colour it was the previous day. And I said, okay. And we sort of teased it out a bit. And then he rang me later on in the day and he said that it had changed colour again. And when we discussed it through and thought it through, basically what had happened was he said to me that his plants in his field were sort of limp and falling over. And then I came through with the spray and they stood upright. So that was the initial change in colour.
Because the underside of the leaf or whatever.
Yeah, the leaf was standing upright and looking at the sun. And then he said later in the day, basically the sun had started there and had moved around. So later in the day, they were facing a different direction. So they were actually tracking the sun. And that's like, it's hard to get your head around that. But when you actually see it in front of you, you can see that the plant is going to interact with the sun an awful lot better when it's standing upright and it's facing it than if it's limp and lying over. And when you get into the science of it, or the material of it, what we're using is silica, and the outer skin of the plant, silica is part of that, and it's going to make it stronger. And if you add silica to something, it makes it stronger. So it's that gesture that you're getting from the application of the prep.
So from the prep to the spray, then, if you're at field scale, is it a small volume is worth a lot? Is that how it works?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you're dealing in very small quantities.
Like fermentation.
And that's why I say that you're sort of in the quantum realm. Like when we apply horn manure, we're only applying 100 grams of horn manure per hectare. So like it's a very small quantity, and we're only applying 4 grams of horn silica per hectare. So like you're dealing with very small quantities, and it's in a very low volume of water as well.
So from a financial perspective then, and I know I'm jumping quite quick here, but it's a very low cost.
It is a low cost, yeah.
So it's not, you're not spending hundreds per hectare on your sprays.
No, you're not. No. It's a very low cost. Like, you know, you can make the preps yourself. It's quite a precise process to make the preps yourself, or you can buy them now. They're available. They're available to buy. The Irish Biodynamic Association is making preps, and they'll be available to buy. And what we've done in the past is we've actually imported them from France, and the cost there is very low. Like I'm saying, 100 grams will do a hectare, and you'd get 100 grams of horn manure for around €8, like plus delivery. So you know, for under €10 a hectare, you know.
And you know, it's funny. We ran a course here. Was it 4 years ago, 5 years ago?
I'd say it was about 4.
With
Yeah.
Vincent Masson from France.
That's right.
What always struck me about that day was that practically everybody at the course were commercial farmers, both conventional and organic. It wasn't that there was a really interesting mix, and one of the most fascinating days I've ever been on a course for. I was out the back making you tea, if I remember correctly.
That's right, yeah.
And I was intrigued about, because it takes in an awful lot more than just soil, doesn't it? It takes energy. It talks about all those earth influences.
It does, yeah.
And we won't go into them today because it's a fairly long. I think to get your whole head around it, take a little bit longer than we have today. But I want to take you back to the commercial element of it. You mentioned Waterford Distillery and biodynamic barley. How is that working out? Because is it four growers at the moment?
There's 5 of us.
Five.
Yeah, so it's been growing the past few years. We started off initially with 3 of us, and now there's 5 of us, and that's been working out great, you know. And they've been great proponents of biodynamics from the outset, and you can sort of see why, because at the head of the Waterford project is Mark Rainier, and he comes from the wine world, and he's told me himself that he reckons that about 75% of the wine produced in the world is produced using biodynamic principles, even if it's not all Demeter certified. And that's a huge percentage of it. And the interesting thing is that they're judged on taste.
Yeah,
and that's fascinating for me.
It's the one area, I suppose, that you hear on mainstream radio and TV when they do the programs on. I often listen to some of the news talk programs, and on a Friday evening when they do the wine. Biodynamic wine comes up on a continual basis.
Yeah, now. And it's the same as what you were saying about the day we had, the few days of course we had with Vincent. There's a lot of diversity in the wine industry, in that there's conventional, organic and biodynamic. They're at all different levels, and we had the same that day in the course.
I always think the biodynamic barley, because barley's not a thing you'd associate necessarily with organic farmers, you know what I mean? There's very few doing an awful lot of barley, and particularly for distilling purposes, you don't hear a huge amount. So does the biodynamic element of it, forgetting about, we'd say, the value of it, but from a growing position, would you be able to grow the barley as well without biodynamic preps? What's your thoughts on that?
No, I wouldn't, as far as I'd be concerned. So there's a number of things that we're doing. So what I've discussed already about applying the preps after the seed is sown to get it to germinate and grow well is one of them. But I'll use the horn silica 3 times during the growing season, and it's at the start to get it to photosynthesize well, and then as you get to flag leaf, I'm applying it again to get it to keep the plant going and to get it through the grain fill. So sort of between flag leaf and grain fill, I'm using it, and it's just the same prep as the horn silica, just to keep that photosynthesis going and to keep the leaf green and the awns green. And then I use the the horn silica again as we come to the end to help it ripening in and to help the evening of the ripening.
Okay.
And evening of the plant growth is something that I've noticed with biodynamics and with the use of the biodynamic preps, that you look across a field and it's even and everything that's in it is sort of growing the same as everything else. And you'd see it less so here in the grass. You'd sort of expect a grass field to be fairly even, but when you're in the horticulture plot and you see the kale and the spinach and that, and you see how even it is throughout a bed, that's down to the biodynamic preps.
Okay, so
which is amazing.
So if we park we'll say the barley for a second, because it is probably the most profitable crop at the moment, is it?
Yeah, it probably is. Yeah.
So, and then how do you apply the preps the same way in grassland?
I'd use the horn silica a little less, and that's partially due to my time, but also it doesn't sort of need it as much. So I'll apply the horn manure and the horn silica on the whole farm during the winter. So the grassland will get it during the winter as well, and that's sort of the idea. That is to help the farm, help the soil recharge and help it get ready for the work that's ahead of it in the growing season. So you're preparing for the growing season during the winter. And then I'll apply the horn manure again in the spring as the growth is starting, as the soil is starting to warm up. And the interesting thing that I've noticed with it, and you have all these visual cues that you get, that it actually helps the soil to warm up. I applied horn manure on a number of fields one spring, and it snowed that night. Okay, and this is where you get the visual cue. The following morning, the fields that had the horn manure applied on them thawed very quickly, and the other ones didn't thaw till the evening time.
Okay, is that amazing?
Yeah, so it's obviously the heat that's in the soil.
Yeah.
So that's the biology getting activated, getting stimulated. Yeah. So we'll apply the horn manure to the grassland in the spring, and then we'll come in shortly after with the horn silica to get it photosynthesizing, and we'll possibly hit it again maybe later in this.
We've had a couple of late cold springs for getting crops in the ground.
Yeah.
So has it a role there then in that case that you could maybe go a week or two earlier?
So you see, I'd look at sowing crops in a very different way.
Okay.
I'm an organic farmer, and I don't have a whole load of crutches to hold me up, so I have to work with nature. And if it's a cold spring, I'm not putting any crops in the ground. I want to give my crops the best chance that they can have. So I'll wait for the soil to dry out and to be ready to be worked. I'll wait for the soil to warm up and to be ready to grow my crops, because I want to get them out of the ground quickly and get them growing fast, and then they won't have as much problems with weeds, and also they'll be sturdier. They won't have as much problems with disease. So I'm giving them the best chance they have.
Even if it's a little bit later.
Even if it's a bit later, and then I use the preps when I do have them in the ground to get them to grow really vigorously and drive them on. And it's surprising how quick you can actually get plants to go through the growth stages and actually produce something. And again, I know I'm reverting back to the horticulture, but I saw it in potatoes. I was growing potatoes just for the house, and it would have gotten the preps, and we planted them the 1st of May, and I harvested them the 1st of July, and those potatoes were ready, and they were good sized potatoes. Like they'd gone through the growth stages, and a lot of people would be saying if you didn't plant your potatoes just after Paddy's Day, you're at nothing, you know. But these, I waited till the soil was ready, until it had warmed up, got them in the ground, and away they went.
Yeah, and you probably have a lot less issues with weeds then as well.
Yeah.
And organically, because there is, I suppose, that ongoing discussion in an organic system that you're in anyway, is that the use of machinery, like for example tillage, we've lots of discussions on the whole area of no-till, minimum tillage, or I suppose inversion tillage. Where do you fall in this? Because there's definitely an issue with, we'll say, compaction, soil disturbance, that we'll say somebody that's just in a biological system, but not that can use chemicals, doesn't have the same soil disturbance physically.
Yeah.
Is there a role, do you think, for biodynamics to soften that whole issue with ploughing, for example?
There is, yeah, definitely. So, I approach ploughing in a very different way. As you've said, I don't have access to, and nor would I want to have access to the herbicides. Yeah. So I have to look at my crop growing in a different way, and I need to use inversion ploughing to stay ahead of grass weeds and to give my crops a chance. So it's a necessity for me, and I just have a different way. I use what I call thoughtful tillage. So I think about what I'm going to do tillage-wise before I actually do it, and I think about the consequences. I'm thinking about the intended consequences, what I want to do, what I want to happen, and the unintended, what I don't necessarily want to happen. And obviously what I don't want to happen is to have the soil damaged, or to minimize it as much as possible. And through tillage, you're going to cause a certain amount of damage. Now, I try to minimize it physically by only ploughing when the soil is actually properly dry, and also slowing the tractor speed to sort of around 4 kilometers an hour. And I'll plough shallow as well. In the cereals, I plough a little bit deeper for the horticulture, all right, but I'll try to plough sort of around the 4.5 to 5 inches with the cereals. So that's as much as I can do physically to improve the situation. And then once it's ploughed and I've tilled it, I till using a tine harrow rather than a power harrow to also help with that. But once that's done and I have my crop sown, I then come through with 500p. And the 500, the horn manure, part of its operation, or part of its job is to help improve the soil and help remediate damage that's been done to it.
Okay.
So you'll actually see the soil sort of coming back together and repairing quicker after the ploughing and the tillage operations after an application of 500p of horn manure than you would in comparison to if it wasn't applied, And I can see the difference in the soil. And the soil here on this farm, it's difficult enough soil to work. It's a non-expanding clay, and it doesn't put up with abuse. And in the past, I'm working this farm for a long, long time, and we would have had it turning up in these big clods, big lumps of clods, and difficult to work, and would have taken an awful lot of tillage to get them to break down. And now we've got a crumb structure that wasn't there before, and the change has been the use of the 500, the use of the horn manure.
In terms of other inputs, then, compost, I know you do use.
Yeah.
Is that? Do you do anything else apart? Well, you've cover crops for sitting in at the moment.
Yeah, well, so
multi-species.
This is a multi-species sward for the animals. So this is part of the fertility building. So the animals would be an intrinsic part of the whole operation and of the tillage part of the tillage operation. So the fertility building here with the clover and the chicory and the plantain and all that is it's a break for the fields, and then they'll come back into the tillage.
So how long is this, for example?
It'll be for 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and this is you're actually practicing holistic grazing here.
Yeah, I suppose I'm practicing my own sort of version of holistic grazing. We did the holistic grazing course through yourselves, yes. And I was sort of quite taken with the different outlook. So we've put it into practice with our livestock. Now, we always used to graze the livestock in a big group, so we'd graze the sheep and the cattle all together. So where they'd all move together and they'd all stay together and graze together for the season. And it was a practical thing for me, it was a time management thing. You go in one field and you look at all the animals in the one go, and you have it done in 20 minutes or whatever length of time it takes. So then the move to holistic grazing wasn't such a big big move because we were grazing them in a group anyway, and then we just went to more paddocks. So the field we're in at the minute is divided into 1.25 acre paddocks. So that's what they graze, and they'll graze that for 2 days and move on. And with the diversity that's in the sward, particularly the chicory that we have here, I have heard people that they struggle to keep it in the sward. But basically, we haven't been on this paddock here for around 5 weeks. So the plants are allowed to grow and get big, and they're allowed to flower, and it seems to suit them, and they seem to stay vigorous. And what I've noticed is that then when the animals come through, they'll graze it down. We won't graze it out the way it is that's done by a lot of people. You know, we'll let it we'll graze it down and leave a bit. And this is the bit that caught my eye with the holistic grazing, is that you're leaving some of it behind to allow it to recover quicker.
And I think maybe it's the one bit that we haven't focused on in holistic management, or with cover crops, I mean with multi-species, is maybe the recovery period is the most. Sometimes I thought it was how low you cut it, but I've looked at it from different aspects, and I think the recovery phase, particularly for the likes of chicory, maybe takes a little bit longer, and you have to think about it that way, particularly later on in the year anyway. And that maybe you'll get away with it in the peak growing season, but in the lower half of the second half of the year, or whatever, the winter, autumn, you probably need to let the recovery phase, and maybe that element of holistic management is the bit we haven't fully adapted to, if you know what I mean. Because I think recovery is what, particularly for chicory, I think that's the issue.
It possibly is. I'd agree. But when you see the animals move off the paddock and you see how quick the stuff comes back, it's great. So it's amazing. And
again, that's a head change.
It is.
Normal tight grass grazing.
This is it exactly.
Okay, so we'll go back now to and we're going to head over to the horticulture element of that, and because you're using the biodynamic preps there as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Are you seeing? So before I go, you're getting a biodynamic premium on the barley.
Yeah.
How about the other animals? Like, you sell beef and sheep. Do you sell direct, or are you selling?
Well, I was selling the beef direct in the past, and then the whole I was selling it direct to restaurants, and the whole issue around COVID put paid to that. So,
but is there currently isn't any real biodynamic benefit to the? You're getting an organic premium, but you're not getting a biodynamic premium, are you,
on the livestock? No.
And is that available, I wonder, in other places, or is that something that needs to be developed here?
I think it's probably something that needs to be developed, and it'd be well worth developing, because the work has been put into producing this stuff biodynamically. So
it would be great.
It'd be great if people could actually say, well, listen, I'm after having a biodynamic meal today, I had a biodynamic steak, and then be able to compare to what else.
Especially when you already have the wine and the whiskey.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is it. Yeah.
And is crops then is actually we'll just head over and we'll have a look at the crops, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. Okay.
Another element of the enterprise we mentioned earlier is horticulture. I have to say, it looks phenomenal. And these are field scale veg that you're selling into restaurants in Dublin. Yeah,
so we're working with Sprout Food Co, and they have us. There's myself and another chap are working along with the head of Sprout Food Co, Jack Kerwin, and so we've created Sprout Farm, and it's here on our farm here in Donadee. So what we're doing is we're growing salads for their chain of restaurants, and they've got a restaurant in Kildare Village, and they've got another 5 restaurants scattered through the centre of the city of Dublin City, and we produce the salad, and we'll harvest it and pack it, and then they take it into the restaurants early in the morning, and they make fast. What would we call it?
Yeah, quick, almost fast food salads.
So so it's like a healthy version of fast food. I suppose is basically is their target. So we've got spinach here beside you, Sean. We've got heads of cos lettuce, and we've kale in the background, and then further away you can see the nets. We have baby leaf under that, you know, so we have
Okay.
baby leaf spinach and a baby leaf mix.
It's very windy here.
It is. So we're using the biodynamic preps here as well. Now we're using them more before we actually sow the crop. We'll get the biodynamic preps on the soil, and before we actually get going with the crops, we'll have the biodynamic preps. Once the crops are growing, we're not using the preps at that stage. We haven't graduated to that yet, and they don't seem to need them. So we're sort of being careful with it because we want to keep the delicateness in the leaf, and so that's why we wouldn't use the horn silica so much. We could use horn silica, but it's already been applied to the land before the crops are growing. So it seems to have the desired effects. You look across our crop of kale there, you look down along the rows of the cos and the spinach, and it's all even. And that's coming from the biodynamics. Like, I have grown these salad crops on organic lands in the past, and it wasn't as even and consistent.
Okay.
So the only change I made when I moved here was the biodynamic preps.
And can I ask you, the kale, you're going to hopefully sell this over the winter, is that it?
Yeah, so we'll be selling this kale the whole way through till the end of next April, hopefully. So definitely into next April, and hopefully to the end of next April. So it grows a little bit over the winter, but we sort of have it. We have it bulked up there now, and we'll just be harvesting away at it all through the winter and into next spring.
And what edge do you think that, I know you're saying you don't spread it on top, but what edge do you think the biodynamics gives the soil? Is it the same thing? It stimulates the...
So the soil
biology?
it's better put together. We've ploughed it and we've done the tillage and we've put it back together using the preps.
So it's almost that repair phase.
Yeah, well, it's much more resilient. Resilient is the right word to use, and we really noticed that this summer when we got that real dry weather in August, the crops didn't struggle at all. They kept going. And you could see that the surface of the soil was drying out, but once you scratched the surface at all, there was moisture there. You didn't have to go down too far. Now, that dry bit got a little bit deeper and deeper as we got further into August, and we hadn't had any rain, but it never got any more than a centimetre, which is very, very shallow, you know, and the crops didn't suffer.
So you didn't have to irrigate?
I don't have irrigation available here, yeah. So, and it didn't need it, yeah.
There's lots of breeze here as well.
Plenty of wind, yeah. Yeah, so, that's good there for you. It's flat and the wind blows across.
Flat and windy. So then, this is relatively late sown.
It is, yeah. So we've more further down that's ready for harvest. This was sown. It was sown late. It was the way the weather came, the way things came, and it suited to get it in. We got it in. It's about a month ago. It's a little under a month ago. It was around the 5th. It was 15th of September, and today is the 6th of October.
Yeah.
So it's hard to know whether that'll actually come to
more of a backup crop than anything else.
Well, I suppose the thing about it is it's a shot at nothing. So if the weather had come differently to the way it did, we'd definitely be harvesting that. As it stands now, we possibly won't, you know.
Baby spinach.
Baby spinach. Well, that's what it's supposed to be. It is baby spinach, yeah.
Very baby spinach.
Yeah. Micro.
Micro spinach. Okay. Yeah. I think you're a bit nervous here, Trevor, but this is the first digging.
We'll have a look and see.
Yeah, I'll have a look to see if we've potatoes here or not. Oh, we're good. Oh, lovely. They're lovely looking potatoes. What variety?
That's Carolus.
Carolus.
Yeah.
I missed a few.
And the soil looks lovely there as well, doesn't it? So you can see the structure in that soil after being worked, and all the rain we've had.
Yeah. We'll put them back. You're not to worry.
Oh no, you can bring them up.
Yes.
So you might want to bring them home and put them in the pot, Sean.
We might just. Jim Cronin would be proud of them, I think. He trained you well.
He did, yeah. That's the truth. Yeah.
So, just in summary, then, biodynamic, from a commercial perspective, you believe has advantages?
I do, yeah. And going back to what we were saying earlier about the wine trade, seeing the advantages in it, I see the advantages in it in the agriculture that we're doing, the tillage, the grassland, and it's building resilience in your soil and building biology in your soil, I suppose.
Yeah, and I think maybe is somebody said to me once, maybe it's the icing on the cake of biological agriculture.
Yeah.
Is the biodynamic finishes it off. It's the ultimate.
It is, yeah.
I think agroforestry goes in there as well, but that's a different thing.
We discussed this earlier about the resilience that we saw in the salad crops here in that real dry weather in August, and that's from the biodynamics.
And do you think, I suppose, farmers could dabble in this for a little while to get used to it? Is biodynamics something, or is it all encompassing? Do you have to buy it in, or could you try a few things just to get your almost dip a toe in the water?
Yeah, well, I think with biodynamics, it's about keeping it as simple or complicated as you want it to be. Like, there's huge levels of complexity to it if you want to delve into that, or you can keep it very, very simple. Like, there's a precision required in the application of the preps, but you can keep it that simple that you just apply the preps, and the precision isn't that difficult to do. Like, a lot of commercial farmers are precise about what they do anyway.
And they have actually machinery-wise, they probably have most of the capabilities of doing a lot of this stuff without any extra cost.
Yeah, that's the truth, all right, yeah.
Great stuff. Trevor, thanks a million, and we'll be looking forward to meeting you at BioFarm to answer questions, because I think there's going to be loads.
All right, okay. We look forward to that.
Thanks,
Sean.
That was a really enjoyable video, Trevor, without Sean's bit of comics there in the middle with his hat. But no, like, really, really interesting insight into your farm. And you have so much going on, from the livestock to growing from Sprouting Co to the cereals. Like, is that key to it though as well, that you have a good mix on the farm, that you have your dung and your manure, and you have your cover crops and multi-species, you have grass in your rotation? Is that all, part of it?
Yeah, well, for me, thanks Siobhan, for me that is definitely central to it, to have as much diversity on the farm as possible. And like, if you look back to years gone by, before we got into the line of agriculture that we are now, and everyone is specialised, there was diversity on every farm and diversity of enterprises, and it insulates you financially, and it also insulates nature as well, in the sense that there's more going on for biology to get involved with, and there's more space for nature, which is a positive thing for us,
Absolutely, yeah. It's about a lot of what we're seeing now in agriculture is about going back to the way things were, isn't it? And to a certain extent, that's what you've done in your mixed farm. Trevor, we've loads of questions coming in online, so we'll start to get through them. And if you've questions in the audience, get the hands up, and a bit quicker than last time now. We won't be waiting for you the next time. So someone sent in, could Trevor provide more info on the horn manure and the 501 application? I know it's science-based, but is there also a spiritual element to this?
So I suppose there is both, and the spiritual element is not really something that I'd have a speciality in. Like, it's there, and I suppose, it's probably for someone else to talk about that end. But like, for me, I'm sort of more fact-based, and I like to see results. I like to see things actually work for me right in front of me, and I don't necessarily want to be in my business relying on faith. So for me, with the horn manure and the horn silica, like, I apply them, and I want to see results and see them have a positive effect on crops or on the soil and on the farm.
Yeah. Someone's recommending a prep there to keep your hat on, Sean, in the comments.
I think sticky tape might do the same thing.
Trevor, someone saying, I buy preps and want to use my sprayer to apply it. Do I need to wash the sprayer more meticulously? So if they use herbicide or fungicide on a different field, does the sprayer need to be washed? And I might add to that, different nozzles. Do you need different nozzles on your sprayer? What do you need to apply?
So on the farm at home, when we started farming biodynamically, we were already organic farmers, and we didn't have a sprayer. So I went out and bought a sprayer. And while I was going to buy a sprayer, I bought a purpose-built sprayer for applying biodynamic preps on farmlands. and it came in from France. Now, to be honest with you, in my opinion, the preps are quite sensitive to the effects of herbicides, and I certainly wouldn't put them into a sprayer that had herbicides. And like, you don't need very specialist equipment. The sprayer that I bought it would run you in around the 10 grand mark. You could go and buy an ordinary crop sprayer, a new one, for maybe a couple of grand, and that'll do you. But I wouldn't advise putting the preps into a sprayer that's had pesticides in it, because you're dealing with live preps. You're dealing with something that has living forces within it, and the chemicals will have a negative effect on that, and you just won't get the results that you want. And that'll then give you a knockback, in the sense that, just say the preps don't work, but it's the method of application that is possibly the problem then.
Fair enough, yeah. Any questions in the audience? Did you measure anything, this man is saying? So did you, well, I suppose yield is the ultimate measurement.
Well, I suppose in the conventional agriculture, the grassland and the cereals, I didn't necessarily measure anything. Like, we will be monitoring yield from year to year, but that can be very subjective, and we've only been farming biodynamically for 6 or 7 years, so you know that could be still related to weather patterns and that sort of thing. But in horticulture, you get an awful lot more of a chance to measure things, and like, we've been growing horticulture crops over the past sort of 5 years, and everything is measured. Like, when we harvest from a bed, we weigh what we've harvested, and it's all very specific. And we've spent, let's see now, we've spent the last 2 years we've spent growing the horticulture crops on biodynamic land, and the previous 3 years it was grown on land that was in conversion and organic. And the yields have increased without any other change other than the use of the biodynamic preps. They've increased by around 30%. So, you know, there is a positive from production.
Yeah.
There.
Can you give a rough idea of yields on your barley and your oats? And I suppose you had them organically, so have they increased with the biodynamics?
So I suppose with me, the way I came to biodynamics is that I was actually seeing the yields go the other way. So I was seeing them dipping, and we went as low on barley as a ton to the acre, or just over a ton to the acre, and now we're heading back in the other direction towards a ton and a half. So like, the soil had gotten really spun out, and the farm that I'm working, it would have been rented land historically, and would have been worked hard, and then I brought it into organic farming, and we had reasonable results, and then we went from having reasonable results to seeing things sort of go backwards. And we tried a few things. We tried building fertility by bringing in large enough quantities of farmyard manure and composting them on farm, and got fairly mixed, if not poor, results, and saw the soil actually going backwards. Okay. And it got more compacted, and there seemed to be less biology in it as a result of this farmyard manure being applied. And I think I then decided that I'd have to rethink everything, and I went away and I studied a bit about soil and about how we can work on it. I went to a number of conferences that, in fairness, Sean would have put on, and learned an awful lot about what I was doing, and then thought it through an awful lot more. And looking back on what we were doing there when we had issues with fertility and we were applying what I'd now call poorly composted farmyard manure, we were actually applying an awful lot of loose nutrients, which was having a negative effect on the soil. And then we fast forwarded to when we started farming biodynamically, and we stopped importing farmyard manure and just used the compost that our own animals were creating, and as a result of having a less amount of it, we composted it better. And we also added the compost preps. There's a set of 6 biodynamic compost preps that you can add to your compost, and it has a huge positive effect on the way the compost breaks down and how the nutrients are made available to the plants that's then applied to. Okay. You know, so.
Very good.
So it was a process.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Question from the floor there now.
Thanks very much, Trevor, for everything so far. My question is actually related to something you didn't talk too much on, is your livestock. My understanding of biodynamic is that it's complete self-sufficiency. You don't bring anything in from outside. So in terms of your stock, are you breeding all of your own stock, sheep and cattle? Number one. And if you are you letting the horns grow out in all your cows? Which is also something that I've read on in relation to biodynamic, that the horn is a very important organ in the cow. So if you could just cover that, and I don't want to bring the whole thing off topic. I know you're trying to stay on crops. Thank you.
That's all right. So yeah, as an organic farmer, I would have tried to keep as closed a herd and a flock anyway, and that was sort of the way organic livestock weren't really available when we started farming. So in order to keep the system as sustainable as possible, I used to breed my own livestock anyway. So we were already doing that. And as far as horns are concerned, they are a very important part of the animal, and I'd agree with the sort of biodynamic ethos that they shouldn't really be taken off the animal. But the animals that we have are mainly short horns and Angus, so they'd be polled anyway, so they don't actually have horns. Now, if they did have horns, and we do have the odd one, like they're all crossbred, so the odd time an animal will come that has horns, and we just let them grow. And they seem to get on all right, that there's no huge issues with bullying. Or I use AI for breeding purposes because I'm keeping my own animals. With cattle anyway, I'd use AI, and it allows me to have access to a larger amount of diversity of breeding stock. And they tend to be that little bit more relaxed. They're sort of bred for docility to a degree, so we don't have huge issues with the cattle having horns.
Yeah, safety required though there as well.
Yeah.
2 questions in on fly control, Trevor. So from Andreas Condell and Kevin O'Hanlon online, are there any biodynamic preps or treatments that you apply to animals at all, or even routinely?
So I wouldn't per se apply the biodynamic preps to animals. What I find with the cattle and sheep is that they're grazing a biodynamic sward, a sward that's been treated with biodynamic preps, and I see that it's a diverse sward as well, and there's the nutrients that are available to them are diverse as a result of that, and they also have access to broad hedgerows, so they've a lot of stuff available to them, and I find that they don't need an awful lot of treatments now. For fly strike for the sheep, they do get preventative medicine for that, and that's the only medicine we generally use on the farm. Like our animals haven't been dosed since 2012.
Okay.
And we did have like our area would be known for copper deficiencies, and a lot of the local farmers would treat their cattle with copper to alleviate that deficiency. And what I found fascinating was that, as an organic farmer, I wasn't dosing my animals anyway, and they seemed to manage without it. But we still had that sort of with the Angus cattle, the black hair. They used to have little red flecky hairs, especially down along the chest area, and that, which would show a copper deficiency. But when we started using the biodynamic preps, those red hairs dissipated and disappeared, and now they have these glowing, healthy-looking coats.
Okay, yeah, and even maybe the multi-species and the healthier soil, things are more available.
It all pushes towards the right direction.
Really interesting. Sean, have you any questions? And if you have a question from the floor, hands up. And we're going to go
it's
to a
probably
break
more
shortly.
of an observation on that point, in the sense that this is almost very similar to what Dr. David Johnson said yesterday, that that it's not necessarily that the Johnson Stew bioreactor compost is going to solve the problems and make everything great. It's his interaction with, whether it's the livestock or the crops on the ground, that living roots in the soil thing. So I suppose in many ways are we getting to a lot of the same areas, that what we're really talking about biodynamics is the idea of healthy soil, and healthy soil that drives production, that as a return drives profit.
Yeah, well, I'd agree with you there, Sean. Like, it's a sort of a circle thing. If you have the soil healthy, you'll have healthy plants, and if you have healthy plants,
you have a healthy bank balance.
The animals will be healthy, and the bank balance will be okay. But you know, and it's about getting those plants working properly, that they photosynthesize well, and when they're photosynthesizing well, they'll produce more bulk and they'll produce more sugars that they can also feed into the soil to also rebound and improve that soil with the biology that they're feeding with those excess sugars, you know. So it's about getting everything humming together.
And you know, I suppose we've decided to go with an introduction to biodynamics on Trevor's farm. It's happening at the end of this month. Now it is full, so if you're not in it, but if somebody's interested and wants to, if we have more people, we can run it again either in the new year or whatever, whenever Trevor is available.
That's great to hear. Yeah, and I think there'll be lots of interest in that, Sean. Like, there's, you know, for conventional farmers and everyone, there's things that they can pull from the system. Like, I learned something there about the ripeness. Applying the silica helps to ripen the barley. That might be something a conventional farmer will take to their farm. So it's really good to hear those things. Look, we're going to take a short break now. We've no more questions from the floor, so we'll be back in 5 minutes, and Ian Gould will join us on Zoom, and Ian is talking about mixed species. Thanks very much, Trevor.
You're very welcome.
That's great.